The Adelaide grandmother in a desperate battle to take care of her grandchildren. Normally, when parents can't care for their own kids, a family member will take over, but not in this heartbreaking case. This grandma has been denied custody of her own flesh and blood, with the children now placed in the care of a person with no connection to the family. Paul Macon has her story.
There's no reason why my grandchildren can't be living with me. Absolutely no reason whatsoever.
A tragedy. Nothing less than a tragedy.
The reality is we know that the government is the worst parent that we can have. I mean, the Mulligan report tells us that.
When it comes to baffling stories, this has to be one of the most curious.
Put it this way, I feel like spewing at the moment because I'm so twisted in the stomach.
This grandmother is a salt-of-the-earth Aussie battler where nothing matters more to her than family.
A grandmother fighting to have her grandchildren returned to her custody after they were snatched from her care in the most gut-wrenching way by Families SA.
There is a section in their manual on relative carers where it states that placing children with relative carers is a priority. Now that's in their policy and procedures manual. It's not abided by.
3 years ago, this grandmother, we'll call Mary, volunteered to take care of her daughter's 2 young boys because she was suffering from a serious drug problem.
My head is saying help her because she's my daughter, but my heart's saying I can't because of the grandchildren, if you know what I mean. I've got to turn my back on her and say, look, enough's enough. You've got to learn to grow up.
And so the next part of the process began.
While an evaluation was being done, I was on a nanny roster for 40 hours a week, taking children to and from school, sleeping overnight with them, hospital appointments and that.
Mary was very confident the children would soon be living with her permanently.
When I didn't get them, I mean, I was hysterical because it just rocked me so much.
In the meantime, the roster included a number of other carers, one of whom clearly wanted to mother them.
This carer took a liking to both my grandchildren.
But after Mary claimed she witnessed an incident involving one of the boys, she made a report to Families SA.
The nanny just grabbed him and threw him across the room and screamed at him, "I'm trying to dress your brother." And his comment was, "But I only wanted a cuddle." I mean, you don't do that to kids.
It was from this moment on that she felt a sense of hostility from the department.
Everything went haywire, and that's just where my world changed from good to bad.
And now?
They're now being looked after by this woman and a foster carer.
On Christmas Eve last year, her world collapsed. Mary was told during a supervised visit not to show any emotion, as the children were no longer hers. And she hasn't seen them since.
It did not feel like Christmas one bit. Because there was no tree, there was just nothing.
That was their Christmas. Just heart-wrenching.
And she wasn't the only one to miss out.
The boy's older brother lives with my mother, and he's missing out on his brothers as well.
And what makes this decision even more puzzling is that a senior manager from Families SA supported Mary's case during the evaluation.
It is recommended that Mary be approved as an ongoing carer for the 2 boys.
The letter said that there was no reason why I can't have the children living with me.
That document was signed by the manager of the office, the supervisor and the social worker working on this case to state that the children should be placed back with the grandmother, that she was a fit and proper person to have the care of those children. That was in 2007. She's still waiting.
Independent MP Anne Bressington has been campaigning for 2.5 years on Mary's behalf, both inside and outside Parliament.
This department has a grave history of covering its mistakes.
Even after Minister Rankin stepped in and ordered an independent inquiry, Mary's treatment sunk to a new low when the contracted social worker involved insisted on delivering the results at a McDonald's restaurant instead of at Mary's home as offered.
I mean, what's wrong with my house? There's nothing wrong with my house.
Callous, insensitive, unprofessional. When you're dealing with people's lives, when you're talking about grandparents who want to be reconnected with their grandchildren, and you do it in a fast food outlet at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning, who would do that?
It's atrocious.
Independent social worker and client advocate Tony Tonkin is another who was shocked that a meeting so sensitive was held at Macca's.
My complaint is that they're just so unprofessional with the way they work that as a social worker I sometimes feel embarrassed to think that my profession can behave that way.
Straight after that McDonald's meeting, Anne Bressington came out swinging.
A whitewash, Paul. An absolute whitewash. A person who is supposed to be an independent reviewer, who is an ex-employee of Families SA, who admitted in the meeting that she still has ties with people in the department.
According to Anne Bressington, part of Family SA's case against Mary is a claim that their own psychological evaluation reveals the grandmother has anger management issues.
I think they've got it wrong.
Well-respected clinical psychologist Dr. Chris Hamilton has also assessed Mary and sees no reason for the treatment that's been dished out.
I found her to be stable, people-oriented, outgoing, somewhat suspicious now, and I'm hardly surprised when I look at some of the things that have happened to her and around her. And it does lead me to wonder what is the systematic nature of the profiling done by Families SA.
She lives and breathes for her family. And we have now a psychological evaluation that reinforces that.
I can find absolutely no psychological impediment to her behaving as a caring, loving and compassionate grandparent and caregiver.
You have a lovely home here, and I noticed some bedrooms there, all prepared, ready for the grandkids to return.
The rooms have always been ready for them. I made that a point of doing so because to me they're everything.
If Families SA approached their work differently, thousands of families would be better off today.
Tony Tonkin reckons Families SA need to change their internal culture.
They need to start building on the strengths and the needs of clients and understand what those strengths are in order to keep the family together rather than breaking them apart.
Families SA had this response today.
Our policy is to place children with family members, except where there are concerns about the welfare of children. Assessment in such cases, including this one, is ongoing.
I just don't know where to go from one minute to the next. They're throwing me around left, right and centre and they're hoping that I'll give up. I'll never give up on my grandsons. Never.